Hey, church family, have you ever felt forgotten? Maybe somebody forgot your birthday. Maybe you were overlooked for a promotion at work. Today I want us to think about the time that Joseph was forgotten in prison. If you know Joseph's stories that's recorded for us in the book of Genesis, you know that he was unjustly accused, arrested, and thrown into prison for something he hadn't done. And he sat in that prison for years. He finally saw his chance for release when he did a favor by interpreting the dream for Pharaoh's cupbearer, who was also a prisoner in that same prison. The cupbearer promised to remember Joseph when he was released. But Genesis 40:23 tells us that Pharaoh's chief cupbearer, however, forgot all about Joseph, never giving him another thought. Joseph's hope for a quick deliverance just as quickly vanished. If that were you or me, it probably would have been hard to contain our frustration and anger. But how did Joseph react? He continued to trust God. He realized that what others had intended for evil, God could ultimately use for good. And the good news is that although Joseph was forgotten, he wasn't forgotten forever. The cupbearer eventually remembered Joseph after Pharaoh had a dream that no one else could explain. They quickly retrieved Joseph from the prison, cleaned him up, and presented him before Pharaoh. Then Pharaoh said to Joseph, "I had a dream last night, and no one here can tell me what it means. But I've heard that when you hear about a dream, you can interpret it." Joseph responded to Pharaoh's request with words that no king wants to hear. Joseph told Pharaoh, "It is beyond my power to do this." You can only imagine the reaction of everyone in the room when Joseph spoke those words. The only reason Pharaoh had sent for Joseph was to interpret the dream. And now Joseph says, "I can't interpret it." Fortunately, Joseph had more to say. He said, "It's beyond my power to do this, but God can tell you what it means and set you at ease." And if you're familiar with the rest of the story, then you know that that is exactly what happened. How was Joseph able to continue to trust God when he'd waited so long for God to move on his behalf? I believe that the only answer is that it was because he'd waited on God in the past and he'd seen him prove himself faithful. In Isaiah 40, there's a promise for those who wait upon the Lord. There we read, "But those who trust in the Lord will find new strength. They'll soar high on wings like eagles. They'll run and not grow weary. They'll walk and not faint." I pray that if you're feeling forgotten, or you feel like you've been put on hold, that you'd take that promise to heart, and that just like Joseph, you'd see God come through and prove himself faithful. Amen.